The numbers say COVID is fading. Will the rhetoric follow? Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Joe Ingles, State House reporter for Ohio Public Radio, Sam Gresham of Common Cause Ohio, and Mark Weaver, Republican strategist. COVID spread in Ohio remains high, but it's falling slowly. For 2 consecutive weeks, the average per capita rate of spread has fallen. That's the good news. The bad news is COVID spread is still about 600 cases per 100,000 Ohioans, well above what the CDC considers a high rate of spread. Meanwhile, vaccine mandates are kicking in. Vaccine deadlines approach for many companies and organizations. Entertainment venues in Columbus now will ask to see proof of vaccination. And at the State House, the debate continues over how to limit or ban such requirements. Joe Ingles, first to the state of the spread. The rate of spread is still double what it was back in August, but it is coming down a bit. Are health officials hopeful this trend is here to stay and will continue to decline?
Well, Dr. Bruce Vanderhoff, who's the head of the Ohio Department of Education, or the Ohio Department of Health, I gave him a different title altogether, but he said the other day that he is cautiously optimistic. He's seeing some good numbers in recent days. He thinks maybe it's going down, and we're also seeing the vaccination rates go up. So as that happens and vaccination rates go up, he's hopeful that maybe we're starting to see some control in this situation.
Mark Weaver, do you think those vaccination rates are starting to tick up because companies, those deadlines are approaching? Most of them were in October. They gave employees, a few weeks notice to get the shots. Companies like Walmart and many other companies, Ohio State University here locally, mandating vaccines. Do you think that's the reason why the vaccine mandates are going up? Vaccine rates are going up?
I think that's part of it, right? Private companies, of course, can set whatever policy they want for vaccinations. I think where people get upset is when government starts mandating it. Early in the pandemic, no one knew what was going on. We didn't know how to protect ourselves. This far into it, people now can get the vaccine if they want it. And though, I did, it's prudent to do it, we should. But those who don't won't. And the government's role is coming slowly to an end. And now private companies are deciding what they want to do.
Sam Gresham, are we at the point now where folks who are going to get the vaccine have gotten it? Do you think these private mandates are working? Joe Biden's mandate kicks in at some point. We don't know when yet. He hasn't put a start date on it yet, but it's supposed to come at some point, that all larger companies in the federal government their employees have to get vaccinated.
There's an irony in that. It means that everybody's complaining about the government mandates. All the original mandates on schools in particular were government-based. It was not a private sector effort. I think the political ideologies associated with mandates and vaccination has made this much more complicated than it should be. One day we're going to look back at this period and say, how stupid could you have been to determine your health by a political ideology? I also have another concern. We're about to go inside. I don't know what's going to happen when we go inside. I hope the vaccination rates meets the number of people who are going inside and it reduces the rate. Logic would tell you once you start going inside, and if the vaccination rates don't correspondingly go up, you're going to have a surge of some sort, whether it's going to be geographical or across the state. Once we're going inside, it changes everything.
Yeah, that's what we saw, I think, last January, right after the Christmas holidays, the winter holidays, that we saw a surge, but that was well before most of us had the vaccine. Mark Weaver, when it comes to government mandates, there is a public health reason to require kids get the measles vaccine. That for highly contagious diseases, isn't a government mandate the only way to make sure that the public's health is protected?
Well, the Supreme Court of the United States and the 10th Amendment, of course, ban the federal government from having a mandate. This is one of the reasons why Joe Biden has not yet signed that order, because he knows it will be sued and struck down probably within a day or two. Local governments under the Supreme Court precedents can have mandates, and where appropriate, they should. But here's the thing to remember. Everybody who wants to be protected from this virus has the choice of the vaccine. And as a result, anyone who's worried about it, which is most of your viewers, has already protected themselves. And so the notion of we the vaccinated need to be protected from the unvaccinated simply doesn't make sense.
Joe Ingles, there is a new bill before lawmakers that would not ban the mandates, but it would basically allow for significant exemptions to any private company's mandate that their employees get vaccinated for religious reasons, medical reasons, and also if you've already had COVID and you have, quote, natural immunity. But the big one, reasons of conscience, have been eliminated in that bill.
Well, here's the problem. It comes down to this. It comes down to individual liberty versus the well-being, the good of the community. And this is a communicable disease. And there are already in law statutes that require that an employer allow religious exemptions and medical exemptions. The problem is that a lot of the people who want to change this and want to have some protection from discrimination because they didn't get a vaccine, they're pushing to go beyond that point. And what we're seeing right now is we're seeing the businesses just forge ahead as the legislature is considering this. And the more time that goes by, the more people get vaccinated. We saw it with United Airlines, for example. They put in a vaccination requirement, and as of September, the vast majority, just a small number of their employees did not comply with that. But we've seen other companies, it's happening over and over again. So the longer this goes on, the more likely people are to get vaccinated when their employers require it or someone else is requiring it.
Sam Gresham, do you think that private public venues like the concert halls, theaters, even churches, should they require that their attendees be vaccinated before they could come in?
I think it's for the group best. We're trying to get to a certain level of vaccination so we don't have to worry about this issue. Anything that encourages people to get vaccinated, I support. Mark, you made a statement. I have to back you up and ask the question. The kids were not being vaccinated yet. Does that give a person who is unvaccinated the right to be in the presence of my child who cannot be protected? Does that give him or her a right to do that?
Yeah, luckily, of course, the science tells us, because I always want to be driven by science, that children are not at great risk from if they get COVID. In fact, children are much more likely, the science tells us, to die from the flu than from COVID. The people who are most at risk from this disease, of course, are the people who are elderly and who have comorbidities. Children may get COVID, but it'll be a very mild experience for them in the vast, vast number of cases. So the notion of setting public policy to protect a group that does not need protecting the way, say, elderly and comorbidity does, just simply doesn't make sense. It doesn't follow the science.
You're not listening to me. The question is, my kid gets it, and he's a child, takes it to my grandparents.
Why don't your grandparents have the vaccine? Hold it, Sam. Why don't your grandparents have the vaccine? They're able to protect themselves. Every adult is now able to protect themselves if they want to. And those who don't have voluntarily chosen to expose themselves to the risk of being anywhere in the world and catching
I will concede that.
All right, let's go on to our next topic. Governor DeWine made a trip south this week. He went to the Mexican border where he met with 9 other Republican governors, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott. They called on the Biden administration to tighten border security. DeWine said it was important for him and his wife to travel 1,600 miles to Mission, Texas, because the Mexican border is the gateway of deadly fentanyl.
80% or so of our deaths in Ohio of overdoses are fentanyl, and it's coming across this border, coming across this river at some point. Starts in China, goes from China to Mexico, and then comes up, and the drug dealers bring it across.
Democrats called the trip a political stunt designed to curry favor with far-right Republicans. Mark Weaver, did the governor have to travel to Texas, to the border, to raise awareness about the dangers of fentanyl and how it does come through Mexico?
Yeah, I think this made a lot of sense. Polling this week showed that about 2/3 of Americans disagree with what Joe Biden is doing on the border. That's a huge number. And as a result, governors are stepping up to take whatever action they can. Remember, we have Ohio National Guard members down there providing support to some of the Border Patrol and other folks who are protecting the border. And fentanyl is just the least of the issues. That's a serious one. But of course, we have many people coming across who have not been screened. We don't know their backgrounds. We have news reports this week said narco terrorists on the other side of the border staring down our Border Patrol with automatic weapons. It's a serious problem. And as the commander of the Ohio National Guard with troops down there, I think it made a lot of sense for Mike DeWine to go down there, see what's happening, and raise awareness about fentanyl, which is a serious problem here in Ohio.
Mark, you're a communications professional, political communications professional. Two questions. One is, if it's so dangerous, does it look odd to have Fran DeWine? We love Fran DeWine, but does it look odd to have her down there with him? And was designed to show him down on the border to help him with far-right Republicans. Wasn't that an alternate reason for his trip?
Well, the term far-right Republicans we hear more at WOSU than anywhere else. Maybe to help them with Republicans, of course, but most Americans want to have our border protected, whether you call them far-right, far-left. Most Americans want our border protected. And the Fran DeWine thing, I've known Mike DeWine for a long time. I worked on his campaigns. He's a friend. I've been around Mike DeWine hundreds of times, and nearly all of them, Fran has been there. This is just a couple that goes everywhere together. It's one of the fun things about Mike DeWine. It's hard to find Mike DeWine without having Fran somewhere nearby.
Sam Gresham, are you guessing these pictures of him along the border wall and with the National Guard will show up in a campaign ad this spring against Jim Renacci?
I wouldn't be surprised at all. And the only reason DeWine's down there is because he's being primary. If he wasn't being primary, it makes absolutely no sense for the governor to take his wife, stand on the Rio Grande border like he's stopping somebody from coming across the river. Governor, don't pander people like that. We're not stupid. And if you were not being primary, you wouldn't be there. You are a logical man, and you're making these right-wingers push you into a position you shouldn't be. Mark, you heard me say right-wing Republicans, pushing them into a position that doesn't make any sense.
Now, Sam, Democrats have been known to use photo ops to push a point as well, go in front of a bridge that's falling down and go out of state and things like that.
So be it, but in this particular case, that's not the issue. Fair's the goose, 'tis the gander.
Joe Ingles, Democrats also said that this precluded DeWine from taking care of important state business here in Ohio, but obviously he has a phone, he can text, he can email from the road wherever he is.
Well, yeah, that's true. And you might want to point out that in the case of redistricting, which is one of the things the Democrats drew attention to, there were other people who were equally involved in redistricting who have been called on by the court to take some action here and allow depositions. And we didn't see much from them this week. So I don't think that's a huge issue, given all the things that are going on.
All right. State lawmakers are considering a bill that would make taxpayer-funded vouchers for private schools universal. Every school kid in Ohio, regardless of income and regardless of the quality of their local school, would get money to pay for private school or for homeschooling supplies. Supporters of the bill say it would streamline Ohio's choice programs and offer parents and students the freedom to choose their school. Opponents say the program will be too expensive and take money away from public schools. They also question who will make sure the money is spent on education. Joe Ingles, where did this come from, or has this always been percolating out there that school choice supporters wanted to make this universal?
That's been percolating for a long time. There are lawmakers who want to make this universal, and there are some lawmakers who would like to have these, yesterday. They would have done it years ago if they could have. So what we're seeing now is a push. And especially now when there's an ideological push. We see it at the school board level. We are seeing a lot of people stand up and testify on issues that they've never thought about before, never testified about before. And the school boards are under attack in many cases from a variety of sources. So it's kind of, playing into this whole push for universal vouchers. But we've got a lot of school kids in Ohio, 1.7 million school kids. Right now, we've got 164,000 in private schools on vouchers, many of them on vouchers. And if that number goes up, that's definitely going to impact how much the state spends on school vouchers versus public schools.
Sam Gresham, school vouchers, charter schools are very popular in urban areas among African American parents and students who want to offer their kids a different choice. Does this widen the opportunity for folks, not necessarily the rich, because the rich can always pay for the private school tuition, but the folks in the middle who don't necessarily qualify for the income limits right now?
Mike, I really have mixed emotions on that private school for African American kids. The results have not been that great. That says there's a substantial difference from public schools to private schools. So now we're investing all that money. We have now made public schools like the worst thing on God's earth. They have a stigma. And even that occurs within the African American community. I don't know if the idea of universal vouchers for every student in Ohio to go to a school is a good idea. I think there's value in public schools. I think there'll be situations where only people can go to public schools. They cannot go to private schools, and the voucher won't really help them. What I see is the hypocrisy that people say private schools are better than public schools, and public schools need to step back and private schools need to fund themselves. They started out private schools with the idea of getting around busing. So a lot of that has dissipated now, and all people want to do is get the money. It's a money grab. Anywhere I can get my hands on some additional money for schooling, fine. It doesn't make that much difference. It hasn't changed the educational setting. And in fact, it has created some fraud. It created fraud in the standpoint of the private schools create these real estate operations that suck up half the money, and they take the money out of the schools. And there's no appreciable difference.
Mark Weaver, you've long advocated for school choice. Because there are problems with the charter schools and voucher programs, should those be tightened up first before they expand the program?
The best judge of the best place to send your child is the parent. This is why we trust parents to make these decisions. I'm a proud public school graduate. My mother was a public school principal. We couldn't afford private schools. And if we'd had the option, we probably would have stayed in public schools because my mother was committed to it. Not that many people will take advantage of these vouchers, but for those parents whose children are trapped in failing public school districts, or in some cases, where it's dangerous to be in that school. And we've seen too many instances of that recently. This gives them the crucial choice to find a place to send their child where they can learn. I think we can all be in favor of that.
Mark, what about the oversight? Schools, they have to report. There's accounting and things like that, audits and nonprofit tax returns, things like that. But for homeschooling, there was an audit in Arizona that showed that some of the money wasn't being spent properly. Public money going to private homes for homeschooling. How do you monitor how one individual family spends the thousands of dollars they'll get to educate their child or children?
Well, we certainly know that's the case when we give food and welfare benefits to people with government money. How do we monitor that the food that people buy with their card that allows them to get welfare benefits, how do we know that's going to the children? How do we know it's not going to be sold or given somebody else? We have a state auditor. Keith Faber does a great job as our auditor of state. There is fraud in every government program. That's the nature of government. And of course, anybody who would violate the law ought to be held accountable. So I'm certainly be in favor of toughening up the penalties for people who violated it and giving more resources to the auditor of state to make sure there is no fraud.
Joe Ingles, how concerned are lawmakers about that? And then we just had the case of this Bishop Sycamore School that apparently was established just to create a football team, an elite football team. That's a legitimate concern. Are lawmakers going to address that in this legislation?
Well, they say that, the safeguards are there. That's something that a lot of Democrats and a lot of people who are looking at this with questions, that's something that they are concerned about. One thing that we do know is that this would apply for every student. So if your parent makes $1 million, they could still, under this bill, be able to get that stipend from the state to go elsewhere. And I think a lot of people are questioning that because it's not people, as Mark said, who are just trapped in public schools financially because they can't afford to go somewhere else. This pertains to all parents who send their kids to private school or choose to homeschool them. So I think there's a lot of questions in this that we're going to see a lot of lawmakers trying to answer them as this bill goes through the process.
Okay, our final topic, the Columbus Zoo this week got a new leader and learned it has lost its national accreditation. The Association of Zoos and Aquariums pulled its accreditation from the Columbus Zoo after it came to light that former zoo leaders used zoo resources for personal activities. The association also cited the Columbus Zoo for using animals from unaccredited zoos or backyard breeders for public appearances. That practice came to light in a documentary critical of former zoo director Jack Hanna. The zoo and its newly named president, Tom Schmid, says they will appeal the loss of accreditation decision and say the zoo has made changes to avoid future problems. Sam Gresham, what do you think the long-term impact of this is on the zoo, this whole chapter?
I think it's a sad chapter in the history of what has been an illustrious and highly recognized zoo. I think it's a valley that's going to take years to get out of for the zoo. We in Ohio, Central Ohio, always took pride in that zoo. The part that bothers me is the backyard animals, where they were using animals from unaccredited facilities to take to kids' shows and et cetera and et cetera. The other part that really bothers me, and having run a nonprofit, is using the money for personal gain. It's hard to raise that money. And it's a disgrace for the leadership of an institution to get that hard-earned money and use it for their personal use. I think that's sad. And it'll take several years to get us out of this hole.
Mark Weaver, the zoo is very popular, and the accreditation really doesn't have any direct impact on the zoo's operation. It might affect how they transfer animals in and out. It might have some effect on donors. Are you confident that the changes the zoo has made has tightened up the ship there?
Here's hoping. This documentary was not particularly well sourced. It was a bit of propaganda, and most troubling, as a fan of the zoo myself, took real cheap shots at Jack Hanna at a time when, sadly, because of his declining ability, cognitive ability, he's not able to respond. So I think there were a lot of cheap shots there. What's very clear is that some of these zoo, as Sam said, some of the people running the zoo did personally benefit. That's troubling. Luckily, Attorney General Dave Yost has an investigation. State Auditor Keith Faber has an investigation. I look forward to seeing those results. And I think we ought to have accountability for any public money that goes to the zoo.
Joe Ingles, any word on the status of those investigations? It's been several months now since they began.
Well, they're all still up in the air, but I've got to say that I agree with Mark and Sam that the zoo itself, people are still going to love to go to the zoo. It's been one of the best zoos in the nation. And I think as far as the exhibits and that sort of thing, what we're seeing at the zoo is not going to significantly change from the perspective of the person who goes to the zoo.
Sam Gresham, one of the odd things about the zoo is how it's governed. There are two boards. There's a board that oversees the governance of the zoo and the private financial assistance they get, the donations, and also another board that oversees how the tax levy money is spent, the Franklin County tax money, even though the zoo is in Delaware County. That's another story. Do you see some of that changing after all this, or is it going to be still this two-headed monster?
I think because of the taxing base, you probably end up with a continuation of this two-headed monster. I don't think from an operational standpoint it makes sense. And I think they're going to have to find a way to make that work better. It doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. It just looks all kind of frosty and meaningless thus far. I think what has to happen, there's got to be some accountability. And I'm not asking for a perp walk, but somebody's got to get their wrist slapped before the community will have confidence again in giving them money to the zoo.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't see a levy request coming in the next couple of years anyway, if they needed one. Time now for our final off-the-record parting shots. Mark Weaver, you're up first.
You know, I read a lot of polls, and for the last 10 or 12 years, we've been roughly a 50-50 country. Certainly during the Obama years, we were 50-50, Trump 50-50, Biden 50-50. The numbers in the Quinnipiac poll this week are very troubling for Joe Biden. It oversampled Democrats by 5%. Yet still found that Biden's approval rate was 38%, which if you accommodate those oversampled Democrats is lower than Joe Biden ever went. Joe Biden is going to have tough sledding in the next legislative year.
Sam Gresham, you're up.
I believe that the period that we're going into with COVID is going to be a very important period. Whether we are able to weather the transition and do the things we need to do to make our community healthy. I'm hoping by 2024, we can stop wearing masks. We can only do that if everybody contributes.
Ooh, 24. Joe Ingles, 20 seconds.
Mark? Okay, Mark had mentioned the booster or he had mentioned grandparents getting COVID. There are booster shots out there. Those grandparents are the first ones who need to get in line to get those because we know that it's a fact that immunity wanes as you get older. They need the immunity. And so there's booster shots out there, and they should be the first ones to consider getting in line for those.
All right, agree or disagree with Governor DeWine's trip to Mexico. At least John Husted didn't try to take over. That's what happened in Idaho when their governor went to Texas. His lieutenant governor tried to extend his executive orders, which is allowed under the Constitution. That's Columbus on the Record. Check us out online, WOSU.org. Have a good week.